I would say I've learned to accept that notion of letting go.
Yeah.
Relax has this feeling like, hey man, you're gonna go places, you're gonna do great things, everything's gonna work out just as it is.
Welcome, everybody, to Enduring Grief, Healing Practices, and True Stories of Living After Loss. And if you are one of my normal audience members, you know that I am a judgy griever and an angry griever and have been kind of a elitist about grief and really only focusing on grief that has to do with death. And this season, I think you'll notice that I've branched out a little bit. We've talked about other things besides death as reasons for grief, which is, also known as the human experience. And today is no exception. So, people, maybe we start to define grief as, hey, I thought this was how my life was going to be, and now it's not, and there's suffering that goes along with that. I think that we could call that grief. And today's guest, a very special person, a very special, wonderful man, will help us understand what a different type of grief than we've normally talked about might feel like. I'm so honored to have our guest, Brad, here today.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, good. Thank you for being here, Brad.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, so tell everybody why you and I are sitting at the same desk.
Well, first off, I wanted to come on this podcast because grief is an everyday life event.
Yes, it is.
And dealing with grief, living with schizophrenia, as you're my therapist.
Wait, he just blew. Okay. What is it called when you tell the ending of a story?
Well,
spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Okay, spoiler alert. Okay.
Living with schizophrenia, Sarah's my therapist, and living with schizophrenia has taught me to learn how to grieve with kind of loss of kind of function, reality, and being an advocate for myself and loss of confidence overall. But going through that process has really helped me rebuild.
Wow.
So yeah.
So Brad is here because through our in-depth conversations, grief kind of landed us in the same room anyway. Brad was seeing my colleague and nearly business partner for counseling.
Yep.
And she died suddenly in September. A good friend of mine. We went to grad school together. Deep loss for the community and certainly for all of the patients who she took really good care of, Brad being one of them. So I, in the effort to find her replacement, Brad and I ended up in the same room, and it's, to me, been a great fit.
Yeah, no, it's been a great fit. I've learned a lot about grief from the get-go. Even working with Megan, we talked about grief quite a bit, and going through the 5 stages of grief is really important, and having that exit through the body is therapeutic in itself, and it's helpful to everyday life in rebuilding yourself.
I think so too, but you got to face it, right?
Yeah.
But so the conversations that Brad and I have had over the last 6 months or so have really highlighted to me that I don't need to be such a judgy griever, and that grief, crosses the lines of beyond just losing someone to death. It's loss of dreams, loss of hope, loss of identity, loss of independence.
I was going to say I can relate to all of these.
You can relate to all of those things.
Yeah.
So, Brad, tell us about your diagnosis.
So I got diagnosed about 13 years ago with schizophrenia. I'm med compliant. I work with my doctors. I'm very, very in tune with myself and my ability to excel. But at a certain point in time, I was being interviewed for I was being interviewed for roles like Boston Consulting Group or going to become a really highfalutin attorney. And I was thinking about doing that.
So there's the hopes and dreams, right?
Right. Yep. There's the hopes and dreams. I was really in tune with myself, and I worked for a couple startups that did pretty well, and I was very fortunate. That being said, things didn't pan out because I had my first and only break, which was 13 years ago.
13 years ago. And so it's been a rebuild since then, hasn't it?
It has been continually rebuilding every single day, every single therapy session. Realize you know what it takes is a lot of discipline, self-awareness, and compassion. Not with other people, but yes, with other people, but also with yourself.
Sometimes, I mean, I talk about this in my own grief experience, like the mental override that is required of me all day to be in the moment, to express and experience joy despite heartache.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes when I'm listening to you, I can just sense this work that you're doing all the time to do the override of the reality, not the override of the reality, but like the override of the hardest parts of the reality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and you know, I work, and I have no shame in admitting this, for Ben Parks and Rec, and they're a great employer, and they've really worked with me to benefit myself and the team there, and I am in a good spot mentally, and I can tap out if things get too stressful, but usually I'm pretty good about going about my business and doing my job pretty well.
Well, yeah, I think that you're doing incredibly well. And oftentimes when we're together, I'm trying to help you feel better. But in the case of today's podcast, we're going to talk about the hardest thing.
Okay.
And so like in terms of grief and living with such a, I mean, it's a serious diagnosis, you know, like if you think about the grief associated with that, like what's the hardest part? Not necessarily the tangible medication and the symptoms part, but like the story that goes along with it for you. What's the hardest part?
Not knowing what the reality was, what hit me.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty difficult to overcome. And once I realized I don't need that in my life, I can make building blocks forward. I can make progress forward. Considering that, that has been very helpful, right? But that being said, you mentioned medication and all that. I just want to point out, for all those with mental health issues, there's 2 points I really like to make. Okay. And the first is take your meds, and work with your doctors on your meds, because those people with not taking those medications is detrimental to your way of life and other people's way of life.
Yeah.
And that leads me to my second point, which is just because you have a mental health condition doesn't give you an excuse to be an asshole.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Deep thoughts with Brad today. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Nor does grief, honestly, which, you know, you guys all know I'm really guilty of it, but it's not an excuse to be an asshole. Like, you can still be a kind and caring person.
I like how you tangentially tackle that.
Well, this is about me. This is my podcast, Brad. But I mean, is there even, I would think that, you know, having been on and off medications for my own symptom management, like, is there a grief associated with knowing that you are on meds for the rest of your life? Oh my gosh,
yes.
What does that feel like?
You know, I've been enlightened enough to experience the highs and lows, and the highs being really, really high, that I want more of it. So whatever meds lead me to getting the highs that I want. So if I continually go down this path of searching out highs and good experiences, why wouldn't meds be a part of that, right?
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Of course it does.
Is that clear?
And one of the things I'm always saying to our listeners is, like, a terrible thing has occurred, whatever that thing is, right, for you, this diagnosis, and we have a choice to then choose to live with that reality in the most meaningful way.
Yeah.
And for you, that includes medications, because for you to have the most meaningful path includes symptom management.
I mean,
right?
grief can come down to the individual, but looking at society at large, I think the whole country's grieving right now.
Oh my word. Mic drop. Yeah.
In a lot of different ways.
Absolutely. I mean, no matter what side you fall on,
I
guarantee there's somebody in your life who's no longer a part of your life because they're on the other side.
Exactly.
That's grief right there. Watching a nation struggle, whether you're on whichever side you are watching a nation struggle, there is grief there.
And circling back, rebuilding at the individual level, I think our society needs to rebuild all together. And I think recognizing that is helpful for every individual out there in our society, but also putting in the work and volunteering and helping your community is really helpful too.
Which is why I thought you would be such a great guest, because I think you have such wisdom around what it's like to live with this diagnosis, and you are such an incredible success story. And I don't think that's by accident. I think that's by effort.
It's a lot of effort.
It's a lot of effort. But like, when the pangs of grief show up, where is it most felt? Like, is it about the diagnosis? Is it about the hopes and dreams? Is it about the limitations or the independence? Like, where do you feel the most
For me, it's
loss?
hopes and dreams, because I I come from a fluent family and a very successful family, and I always imagined it would just pan out for me.
Right.
And not necessarily not putting in the work, but I kind of half-assed the work, but it didn't pan out for me as I thought life would. So that's where the most grief in the past has been, is kind of recognizing that and moving forward.
How do you move forward? What do you tell yourself? Like, how do you say, well, shit.
Yeah.
This is the story. This is what has actually happened. And now what?
So I find what works for me is the mornings, right? Like, we're recording this in the morning. I am better off in the mornings than I am at night. Mm-hmm. And going out late at night, going on bar crawls and doing all that isn't in the cards for me because of my condition. Mm-hmm. So recognizing that and not putting yourself in bad positions where you can dwell on certain situations has been very helpful for me.
What an incredible tool. And that goes across all the different types of grief, guys, because all I'm ever telling you is you get to decide what's best for you in the moment. And we don't have to do it for anything other than what's best for us in this moment, you know. And to say I'm not into that sort of thing, it's not going to serve me, takes courage. One, mm-hmm. And you have to face the fact that probably you, in some ways, you wish your life did include those things.
Well, you know, I've been very fortunate. I've lived probably 9 or 10 lives. I've been a soccer player over in Europe, overseas. I've worked for a startup that was successful. So, you know, acknowledging that schizophrenia is a wide spectrum. It can happen to the homeless guy talking to himself on the street. It can happen to someone, I mean, I say this with a little blushing, or I'm blushing a little, but it can also happen to me too, right?
Yeah.
And recognizing that there's a whole wide spectrum, and recognizing the reality of the diagnosis is the most important thing that I think has been helpful for me to succeed.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people do that with my condition. It's recognize their reality of their condition and how it affects those that love them and those that care for them.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. Well, you're a very kind and compassionate person with a lot of empathy. So you're special in that way, I think, no matter what.
Thank
you. I think it is more important even when you're living with this to face those kinds of things, right? You're not breezing through life. You have to consider what all the effects of this disease has on the people you love and your world. Did you ever feel grief around the stigma? I mean, there's so many stigmas with mental health. Like, were you ever embarrassed? I mean, right now, I don't get the sense that you're like wearing this like a badge, but I don't also get a sense of embarrassment that this is.
I'm not going to wear it like a badge because my reality isn't defined by my stigma. Mm-hmm. I can be successful in my own right without the stigma. That being as it may, the stigma was detrimental. So we talk about loss and grief, right? I mentioned there's a loss of confidence, there's a loss of relationships when I got diagnosed with schizophrenia because all my friends didn't know how to react, really. Mm-hmm. And that was tough, you know, and rebuilding this network here in Bend, Oregon, and getting to know the community here. They've been very receptive, and it's enlightening in its own way, right? People at tune with their feelings. We live in the high desert here in beautiful Central Oregon, where people are more in tune with their feelings than the hustle and bustle of San Jose, California, right? So,
we depend on our community in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, my buddy jokes, this used to be a town, 10 years ago, where you bump into somebody with your car and then you'd see them at mass the next day, right? So that's kind of the beginnings of this community is.
So you've moved through what it means as far as the stigma. I don't see it holding you back too much now.
Not as much now.
Not as much now.
I actually.
Oh, wait, before I forget, because this is something I talk about in grief a lot, is like that day, the day that the first thing I told you was not, oh, my daughter has died. Because there were years where if you met me, the very first thing I was going to tell you was that I was a griever and that my life was terrible and everything had fallen apart, because it was so front of mind. It was like the only thing it seemed like I was feeling most of the time. Yeah, but it was just such a profound, deep feeling that it overwhelmed my system most days.
Yeah.
And so it felt like that is the thing I have to tell you. And then it stopped being like that.
Yeah.
Can you relate to that?
Oh my my gosh, I talked about my schizophrenia with almost everyone, and I've kind of petered off in recent years, but the success that I've had at Ben Parks and Rec and the local government here has been really helpful for me, right? In talking about it and pursuing avenues to help people, because I realize how lucky I am. How many schizophrenics can maintain a job?
Right.
How many schizophrenics are going to leadership positions? And
does it ever feel strange to say something like, I'm so lucky?
yeah, no.
News alert.
I thought
not everybody thinks that this would be lucky, right?
No, it does feel strange.
But it's perspective.
It is. So there's 2 points I'd like to make. First is I didn't have the perspective as a young adult that my life was perfect. I didn't have that perspective. Only through the trials and tribulations have I realized my life was perfect, and it worked out the way that I wanted to. How lucky am I to live the life that I wanted to live, whether that was with schizophrenia or without schizophrenia? How lucky am I to play soccer in Europe, work for the government, work for a startup? How lucky am I to do all those things? A successful startup, it had an IPO.
You had to do both, right?
Yeah.
Because you had to both be living with the truth.
Yeah.
That this is not lucky, and yet choosing to feel lucky sometimes. I mean, that's effort.
Yeah, that's effort in its own right. But the second point, what I wanted to make was that schizophrenia in its own right is difficult, but more importantly, having people around you like you, Megan, my parents, my family, my community has been great. And if you can get a community around you, it's helpful. Does that make sense in a way?
It makes perfect sense. And that's something I preach all the time is like, we do so many hard things alone and in isolation. And guess what? It makes it harder.
Ruminating is not a good thing.
No.
And that was a word that was new to me when I first got diagnosed. I went through, I had my break, but I've never been hospitalized. And I went to an outpatient therapy program just to test the waters and see. And they introduced me to this word rumination. It was different language to me. I was fluent in business tech and startup tech in San Francisco, but I did not know what the word rumination was. And when I realized what rumination was, and getting out of that cycle has been great for me. Right?
I love that because, all the time, the work that we're doing is to figure out all the different parts of us. And like I was saying, when I wanted to introduce myself to somebody new and the first thing I would tell them is about my grief, it felt like that's all there is to me is this.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important for us as grievers living with less than optimal situations, whatever that looks like for you, to reclaim all the other parts of you.
Yeah.
Even if they're redefined. Like you'll never go back to being undiagnosed, right?
No.
And yet you're still a brother, a son, a friend, a community member. You are more than your diagnosis. You are more than your grief. And there's effort in the healing process, which you guys know is up to you to define your healing process, but there's effort there that is valuable in terms of the redefinition of all your different parts, because when you are so overwhelmed by the one thing, I think it leads to rumination for one.
Yeah.
But it's such a law. It's more of a loss.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think wearing it as a badge for a while is a good pain, because you acknowledge the truth.
Right.
And you're going through that acknowledgement phase, right? Where you're like, this is my reality now. Okay. What does that mean? And for me, it meant taking notes every day, right? And getting better at the things that I suck at, right? And
should I ask about cooking?
Yeah.
This isn't sweaty balls, so we'll skip that.
No. Cooking, fair point.
But dedication to growing.
Yeah.
Evolving.
Yeah.
Living with.
Living with, and instead of living kind of idly by.
Or in denial.
In denial, exactly.
But I mean, everybody's heard me talk about this a million times. I just think it's really interesting. And I love that you're talking out and speaking out about mental health issues and the stigmas, because, you know, a celebrity dies and we pour into the streets to grieve together, even though we've never met the person.
Yeah.
Because there's this social permission to face a hard thing.
Yeah.
Right. But then something happens to me, or somebody gets a diagnosis. Right. And what do? Hide behind the closed doors and think, well, I must do this by myself because that's how strong people do it. And it's just so backwards.
Oh, very much so. Very much so.
So what, like, if you could whisper in your ear at the time that this all started unfolding for you with the wisdom you have today, what would you tell that version of yourself?
Have confidence in who you are. And that's easier said than done, because again, my first point that I made, I think earlier in the podcast, was the loss of confidence, right? And having confidence. See, in California, it's socially acceptable to have schizophrenia, but it's also not.
Right.
So in Oregon, where I can have downtime, I can go for hikes, I can go through the mountains and be myself and kind of work through trauma, has been helpful, right?
Yeah.
You don't have that in San Jose, population 1.3 million, I think.
All right. So it matters, your environment.
Yeah, exactly. So
and nature.
Yeah, nature is very helpful. There's a lot of studies that show that nature's been incredibly helpful. The sun's been incredibly helpful to those with mental health issues. So I know it's trivializing, but get out there as much as you can.
Yeah, connect.
Yeah.
With something greater than you. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And okay, so you would tell your former self, be confident. And now let's fast forward. Let's pretend we're 5 years from now. What do you think this version needs to hear? This guy sitting here today. What do you need to hear?
Relax.
Oh, relax.
Yeah. Life will happen.
Yeah.
No matter what you try to do, as much as you try to prevent it, or as much as you try to indulge it.
Mm-hmm.
But just relax, because everything's going to work out the way that it's supposed to.
So is there a difference between your version of relax and trust the process? Or are they the same?
I would argue that relax has a emotive feel to it.
Okay.
But that being said, they're pretty much they're not too dissimilar.
So let go.
Yeah, let go.
You can't control it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't say. I would say I've learned to accept that notion of letting go.
Yeah.
Relax has this feeling like, hey man, you're gonna go places. You're gonna do great things. Everything's going to work out just as it is. Does that make sense? Is that clear?
Yeah, there's a bumper sticker that sometimes gives me heartburn, but sometimes I really like it. Mostly I like it. And it says, it'll all be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, my father had a phrase. My father has a phrase, pardon me. The only thing that the end of the world is the end of the world itself.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Damn it. Because it feels like the end of the world.
Yeah.
But to know it's not.
Yeah.
There's a beauty and a tragedy in that, because in some of those really hard times, you kind of want it to be then, like, let it be representative of what's actually occurring. And then to know, oh no, it's just going to keep going.
Yeah.
We're not done here yet. Not yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, 5 years from now, tell myself relax. I want to help this community grow as much as possible. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if it's getting more political or more volunteer hours, but I want to get in a place where I can help this community grow. And
I love that, because I remember one time, it was like really close to my losses, and my mom and I went to listen to a monk speak, and I don't even know why we went. I mean, it sounds interesting, so that's probably why we went, but I wasn't much for social engagements at that time. Anyway, we ended up in the presence of this really profoundly wise man, and the whole topic was about grief, which we didn't know was going to be the case. And then his main message was to be with others is the path to healing, to transformation, to learning to live with, is like to be with others and share the experience. Yeah. Either yours or aligned because they have something similar or whatever. But I love that that's what you're saying, because I think when we are facing hard things, to give back and be a part of something bigger than you.
Right. Especially on this day. So I watched earlier this morning. I watched the Today Show every day, and earlier this morning they had a bit with Jenna Hager-Bush, the Clintons, Obamas, George W. Bush, and they talked about the outward appearance of yourself is a lot more granular than you think it is. But they didn't talk about it like in that sense. They basically said, hey, look, the biggest events in our history, in our country's history, have to do with volunteerism.
Wow.
Right. That's how, this is what this country is known for, is volunteering to, help, in my case, help underprivileged kids or kids that are struggling in the community and help them grow. Or even in a larger sense, when I was a volunteer firefighter in EMT, doing that kind of stuff. World War II. Oh, sorry, I'm getting off topic. I apologize.
No, you're fine. I just know you weren't in World War II, so I'm curious where that was going to go.
No,
the volunteers.
The volunteers.
Yes, World War II.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you hope our listeners, what do you hope you help with today by being here, doing this with me?
I hope this is a self-fulfilling prophecy for myself, that I can grow exponentially off this podcast and have not a spotlight on me, but on the spotlight on this community. This community has been there for me, and I really want to be there for them.
As we talk about how we're helping the most, right, with this particular episode, I'd love for you to tell us, the greater group, how to love and care for somebody who's facing something so difficult. Like, what is the most helpful thing that people do for you, with you, alongside you, that feels so supportive? Because this whole notion that it's going to be okay and there's a reason for everything, like that whole crap, I think probably applies to your whole situation too, where it's not very helpful.
No, I think.
So what is?
Yeah, I think applying the scientific theory.
Say more.
So trial and error.
Okay.
Whether that be how you approach individuals or how you contort the reality around them or how you nurture the reality around them with severe with severe mental illness, it's a real issue, because the individual, it ultimately comes down to the individual to come down to their own reality and have their reality meet reality, which is difficult.
Yeah.
And so it comes down to the individual in the sense, like, they have to apply the scientific process and getting through trial and error of messages and what have you. For me, a lot of trial and error with my family was helpful. And then I've eventually gained the confidence to where I am at today.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah. And do you think that the people who love you most showed up with compassion, empathy, patience? Like, would those be ingredients to the supportive person?
Yeah, but I'm thinking of the viewer. The one that struggles is the one that's not heard. And so I'm thinking of the viewer out there that's not being heard right now. And I think for that individual, like, that's listening on your podcast, apply the scientific process with your therapist and your care team. And if you don't have a care team, go get a care team.
Yeah.
And work on that scientific process of trial and error. And including your network in that trial and error process is helpful. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Because and additionally, on a Monday, this might feel really helpful, but then by Friday, you're toast and it doesn't feel as helpful. So being open to changing your mind, that's okay to do. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to use all the new information you have and make the informed decisions about it. And I think, like, we have this cultural affliction of wanting to fix, and much like grief over loss of a person that has died, nobody can fix this for you, right?
No.
And a lot of people who love you probably really want to fix this for you.
Right. Yeah.
Do you ever sense that and feel frustrated by it? Or
very much so. Yeah. Very much so. And I recognize it comes from a place of love.
Right.
And so that took about 5 years to figure out that it all comes from a place of love. That being said, there are other realities that, my work for the government, I'm very fortunate to have that experience. I can't talk about it with my parents at all. And so when I say I have a view on this because of this, they're like, oh, well, that doesn't make sense, right? And you're kind of like, how do I compartmentalize myself so that I can be in motion with everyone in my community and my family life?
Well, I think that's one of the hardest parts about grief, because if we as grievers, and I'm just going to lump you in with me, right,
Sure.
for the sake of this, but like if we as grievers truly need people to understand our experience in order to support us, we will be alone, because they never will.
Yeah.
No, you're never going to understand my experience. And if I was relying on that to feel supported, tough luck, right?
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
think that's what I hear you saying. Like you can't wait till they get it to feel supported.
No, it's all onus on you.
It has to just
So
be like,
what was helpful for me, kind of circling back to the beginning of the question, was scientific theory, right? Trial and error and messages, emotions. I've been fortunate enough to realize to think before I talk, which I didn't have really beforehand. A lot of thinking before I talk. And that has been helpful, right? Is realizing that, your words can hurt. If you're off-putting in certain ways, you can hurt people. And so thinking with intention about how to better people up or build people up or be a member of your community has been very important for me. Is that clear?
Yes. And I think that you have an incredible skill of just receiving support.
Yeah.
Even if it's not wrapped up in the paper you're in the bow that you wish it was.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You see it for what it is, which is effort out of love.
Well,
I hear you say that a lot.
Yeah,
I know that they're doing this out of love, and so I'm going to let it feel like support.
Like, I'm thinking about the whole grief process, right? I brought up loss of relationships, loss of confidence, stability. Those are things that are really on me to figure out. They're not on anyone else to figure out. And, going through the pain in actuality wasn't that bad. It's actually the best part because that's where growth happens, right?
Wow.
Right.
I bet that's been an evolution. I bet you didn't always feel like that was the best part.
No,
and that's why I tell these guys all the time, like, if what we're saying, you're like, this does not apply to me because I'm in that hardest part. I'm not there yet.
I feel that. I evoke emotion just saying that because I've been there. I know how bad it gets.
And you're like, this is not the best part. But hang on to the hope, guys, right? Because it changes.
Whether that's medication or influence of friends and family or your care team, passage of time, realizations that you didn't know you can make, or connections you didn't know you can make, has been incredibly helpful in my growth as a human being, and it can be for you too.
Absolutely.
Right. And going back to the notion that our country's grieving, there's a lot of grief in this country, whether that is I'm just thinking here, loss of trust in institutions, our own sanity, or other things like that.
My monthly healthcare premium bill.
Yeah, exactly.
There's grief there, guys.
but addressing the issue head on is, for me, the best way forward. And if you're really struggling, there's always support networks out there that you can rely on.
Have you relied on one specifically?
I called 998 once in my life, I think.
Okay.
But that was when I was in Silicon Valley, so that was like 10 years ago, right? Okay. So,
but there are networks out there to support you.
There are networks.
They exist.
But the one thing I would take away is, no matter how much pain you're in right now, it does not do you any good to think about how much pain it will bring you tomorrow, because tomorrow's a better day.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
I feel like it's a really perfect place to stop.
Okay.
Because I think that's all we get, right? Is this, it won't always be this hard. Yeah. And if we can find the hope and belief that, in fact, that's true and that it really won't always be this hard. Yeah. It kind of gives you the grit, the permission to get up again tomorrow, right? Yeah. And we're not saying tomorrow's going to be unicorns and rainbows.
No, it's not.
But there's a really good chance that if you're having a really terrible day, tomorrow's not going to be as terrible. Right?
I mean, the scientific method was helpful for me in the sense like I would write how I felt in my journal every day, right? And I'd write 1 out of 10, even just writing 1 out of 10 where you are. And then you realize yesterday was a 3, today's a 4.
Mm-hmm.
Like realizing how monumental that can be, that 4 is a 4 instead of a 3,
Yeah.
can be the change in everything,
I
in
agree.
your view on life and everything.
Yeah. And it's always changing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this too shall pass means the good times will go and so will the bad. Like
Sure.
everything is always shifting.
Yeah.
So I can't thank you enough.
Yeah. Yeah. No worries.
What's your number right now? How's today?
I would say today's a 9. I'm outwardly facing, there's a good force out there that I'm engaging with.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited about what the future holds.
Oh, I'm so glad.
So that's where I am.
Awesome. You guys follow us on all the normal places. Clearmourning.org is the website of my nonprofit. This is Enduring Grief, Healing Practices, and True Stories of Living After Loss. We thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Brad.
Yeah, no worries.